Alright, so here we go. Basically, I just set up a small, simple row lander. It'll take you to the moon and back with a little bit of fuel to spare. It doesn't have a ton extra, but it's got enough for a margin of error, especially if you fly it a little bit more aggressive. The first thing I always do is I actually will rotate my ship from the default another 90 degrees this way. That way your capsule window is pointing to the side to the left instead of kind of at you to the right. What that does is when you place it out at the launch pad here, when you're doing your gravity turn, you now roll yourself forwards with W instead of to the right with D. It makes it a little bit easier to do your gravity turn. So what we've got on here, we've just got 5 of those basic engines I was showing you, 4 down at the bottom, 1 at the top. The way they'll stage is they'll all fire at the beginning, then this one and this one will drop off first, then this one and this one drop off next, and finally this one will carry us to the moon. Once we're at the moon, we have a little engine here that will feed first off these 2 tanks and then finally off this tank. So I'm just going to give it a basic launch. It's nothing too complicated to get off the ground. Full power to start with. Once we get up to 100, we'll kind of cut our power back a little bit. Basically what I'm doing is I'm kind of riding the speed, so at 2,000 meters I want to be going 120, 3,000 meters 130, 4,000 meters 140, and so on up to 10,000 meters at 200. In order to do that, we basically slowly bring the fuel down, thrust down as we get higher. As it burns fuel, you can see the speed is increasing faster than the height is. And I went a little bit of overkill there on the speed, but not a big deal. We'll back it off a little bit, and there's our first 2 engines. Dump those guys off, bump the throttle up just a little bit, and there's 10,000 feet to start our turn. So again, I'm going to kind of slowly roll it over. It likes to take a little bit of effort here to get to roll to 45, but nothing too bad. It doesn't like to flip or anything like that. So now I've got that on 45. Once I hit about 20,000 meters in height, I will bump the throttle completely up to full. You can see these tanks are still feeding into there, so these are the only tanks that are draining at the moment. So now we're going full throttle. We will switch over and watch this part here kind of switch back and forth. Keep an eye on the fuel level and the apoapsis. The fuel is going to run out before we get there. Soon as we dump the fuel here, we will roll over completely flat. Roll her over to 90. I could have rolled it over a little bit sooner, but oh well, this will work. I'm going for a 100-kilometer orbit, not the 75 that I normally do, so this will put us just about fine. You can see our apoapsis isn't going up that fast, but our orbital velocity is increasing quite a bit. And what that does is it makes it a lot easier once we get up to 100 here. There's not as much of a correction we have to do to make orbit. You can see we're at 62,000 there, so there's almost no air resistance left. So we'll coast up here pretty easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this maneuver node to drag out my velocity. You can see there's the periapsis rising there. When you get them so they switch, so they're about sideways like that, now that basically means that if you execute that burn, you're going to be in a roughly 100 by 100 orbit. You can tweak it a little bit depending on how picky you want to be. I like to make my orbits really exact, so we kind of tweak that, and if we execute it properly, our orbit should be nearly 100 kilometers on the dot. So I'm going to line up with the blue node here, time warp just a little bit. You can see I have a 22-second burn I need to do, so I'm going to time warp until about 15 seconds early. There we go. Now get us on the dot and go. And you can see the blue line starts to rise to get closer to matching up with our yellow projected line here. Tweak our thrust angle a little bit to stay on that dot. There we go. See our periapsis rising. Yeah, I overshot it just a little bit. That's not one of my perfect orbits, but we're at 100 by 103. That's not too shabby. You can see I've just finished up those tanks. This one's still full, so I'm going to dump those 2 tanks. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up for the moon, which should actually be coming up quite soon. So I'm going to add another maneuver here. First, actually, I will set as target. Now we add a maneuver, and we can see we are getting a encounter over there. Now basically I'm going to tweak my encounter to get it where I want it to be. Basically I'm trying to bring my moon periapsis down so I get a relatively close encounter to it. Takes a little bit of just trial and error to move this around and get there. See which way brings it down, which way brings it up. 476, 528. Okay, so need to add a little more velocity. There we go, 8,200. That is almost perfect. I'm going to end 2 minutes and 12 seconds here. Need a 36-second burn to get there, so I go ahead and line up on my blue reticle. That tells me what burn to do. I'm going to again time accelerate just a little bit here until about 20 seconds early, and then start my burn. Then you want to do your burn halfway before, halfway after. Oh, 1 or 2 seconds too far, but that'll do. So there we go. You can see again, now we're just on this one tank. These 2 are being saved for the next stage, so it's just this single tank here. Keep us on our blue dot. You can see our orbital trajectory is growing at this point. We're trying to line it up with that yellow one. Gonna cut my thrust and do it at the last little bit at a bit slower of a speed to try and get it more exact. What you can see with that purple line there growing is that is a gravity slingshot. And I am actually out of fuel. I finish up this last little bit with that engine there. That is the engine we're going to use to descend to the moon. I actually didn't time that quite as well as I did last time. Last time I finished up with a little bit of fuel still in that, and this time I didn't even quite make it. But again, it's not a big deal. I packed enough extra fuel here to make sure we get there without any trouble. Well, now my maneuver nodes are bugging out. So what I'm going to do really quick is do a little bit of tweaking to make sure I come in at a equatorial orbit. I'm just lining this up with that green line there. That's going to take just a very, very small burn. The point where I put this on the orbit doesn't really matter at this point. I was just trying to get the right direction. The earlier I do it, the actual less power I will need. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a little 3 meter a second burn now. That's close enough. So you can see now I have an encounter. Oh, that's a very, very low encounter. I'm actually coming in almost just 1,000 meters above the surface. I don't really want to come in quite that close. It's not a huge deal if I do. I could fix it later, but the rule with orbital mechanics is the earlier you fix things, the less power it takes to fix them. You can do something with a 1 or 2 meter adjustment several hours or days ahead of time that could take a couple thousand meters per second of velocity to adjust if you wait till you get there, especially with orbits around planets and so forth. Always tweak those as early as you can actually possibly do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring that periapsis to just over 10 kilometers there. It's 11, close enough. That will get me a good encounter just far enough off the surface. There's no atmosphere on the moon, so it's actually better to get close to the surface. It makes it easier to land. It's a little more dangerous, but you can pull off landings with a lot less fuel if you come in low. Unless you really know what you're doing, you don't want to come in below 10 because you can't time warp around the planet as fast, but coming in at 10, just over 10 is perfect. I'm going to slow down just before I hit this encounter because if you pass it going at a high time warp, your periaps will move a lot, but if you come in and slow down at the last minute, it'll stay almost exact. Oh, not sure what we did there, but that is quite odd. I think we just glitched out for a moment. There we go. And we're unglitched. So there we go, 11,500 periapsis. That'll do us just fine. I'm going to go ahead and set up a burn here to drop my apoapsis down. So again, my orbit's basically circular. I'm going to put them, both the peri and the apo, at just over 10K. Got to do a little bit of tweaking here to even them out. There we go, 11K, 11.5K. That will do. Again, we're going to need a 275 meter a second burn to do that. Go ahead and line up early because there's no point not to, and we will once again time warp until we get there. It'll slow us down automatically when we get close to the surface, so we don't really have to worry about overshooting crazily bad, but you still can do it, so kind of watch it. Again, I'm gonna go until about 15 seconds before, and then I will do my burn. Okay, start my burn now. If I wanted to, I could just land right now, but one, I don't want to land on the dark side of the moon. I can do it, but light side's more fun and easier, and two, this way you can kind of see what is around on the moon. I was going to land in a particular location, but it's apparently on the dark side right now, and like I said, I don't really want to do that, so we will have to pick a new landing target. Actually, I know where I'm going to land. I'm going to land us right about here. And there is a particular reason for landing right there that you'll see in a moment. So again, I'm going to adjust my orbit here to kind of get us where I want to land. That should put us in just about the right spot. I'm going to try and do this in one shot without saving and reloading, although I cannot guarantee it depending on how the game wants to cooperate. Go ahead and line us up there. We have just a 4-second burn here in a couple minutes. I hope I picked that right spot. I think I did. Alright, getting ready to go in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and go now. Not going to go completely full throttle here. Perfect. Now we're just going to again time accelerate until we get a little closer to our target. I totally guessed on this. I hope I went to the right spot, because it's a little bit late to correct it now if I didn't, and I don't really see what I was looking for, which is troublesome. It's supposed to be right around in here. Oh, maybe it's up there a little more than I thought. No, I should be almost right up on top of it. Where the hell is it? I swear this is the right spot. Well, we're putting it down here anyway because this is where we lined up for the orbit, and yeah, we kind of have to put her down here. I mean, I could very easily correct the orbit and not put her down, but there's no point. This was just kind of a bonus, not really the main intention. There's like a basically an Easter egg on the planet there I was going to land on. But the game is not cooperating, so be it. Nope. Don't really want to start going up again. We're just trying to kill our velocity without going down too much. So I'm just going to kill off the horizontal velocity slowly here, get us so we're just dropping straight down. Well, that wasn't the softest landing, but that's why I built this lander with extra large legs, so we wouldn't have to worry about a little bit of a bumpy ride. Oh, apparently I accidentally duplicated the light. I intended to just put one on the back side, but I duplicated one on the front side, which means that it's now blocking my ladder. And it's Again, irksome, but it does not really matter in the long run. Wrong button, because you don't actually need the ladder on the moon. You can get up and down just fine with our thrusters on the jetpack here. The ladder was just more to make it look right and everything be fancy and all that stuff, but it's not quite going as planned. Kind of bump our head there. But again, this is the moon. Wish I knew where the hell that thing I was trying to land on went to, but whatever. Gravity here is quite low compared to Kerbin. It makes it much easier to land on and more fun to play with on jetpacks. Now, the reason I turned the lights on even though it was daytime is you can actually use the lights to judge how far you are above the ground pretty well. You can also go into the cockpit and it actually has a radar altimeter, but the lights are easier to use, although in this time I flummoxed it up pretty bad and crashed down a little bit harder. Normally I touch down about 2 to 3 meters a second, not 6 to 7, but these legs will actually take about a probably 12 meter a second landing with the weight of this lander right now, so it's not too worrisome. At this point, I am just going to take off again, fold the legs in, fold the ladder in, going to turn off the ASAS so I can actually rotate the damn thing. Not over-rotate the damn thing, because that doesn't work either. And pitch ourselves the right direction. Because I'm making a video, it would be helpful if I could actually do the crap right. Go ahead and accelerate here. We still have plenty of fuel left. I am basically going to do is burn until I get my lunar apoapsis up above 10K here. Again, that's so I can warp. You really want to have the decent time acceleration available to yourself all the time. It sucks to do everything with no time acceleration. Alright, there we go, 10K apoapsis. Now we are once again going to set up a maneuver to raise the other side. There we go, both of them above 10K. We have a 6-minute and 28-second wait as soon as I find the blue reticle there. There we go. So for the time being, I'm stuck on 10x time acceleration until I get up closer to here, which is why we want to raise both sides to over 10 eventually, because at 10 it opens up the 50 times time acceleration for the moon. That varies planet to planet, but for the moon that's where 50 times opens up, and 50 times makes it so much quicker to wait for orbital timings than 10 times does. So it's going to be a very short, just a 1 second burn here. There we go. And there we go. 10,200 by 10,100. Not bad. Next thing I'm going to set up is a return burn to Kerbin. Generally, when you're orbiting going east, you will do your return burn somewhere around here. Again, I'm going to set it up with a maneuver node. You can see it set up. And the reason we do it there is if you drag this along, you can see that that is the most efficient location to do it, to get back with the least amount of fuel spent. So I'm going to set this up at the moment so I have a Kerbal periapsis of, I don't know, 35K or so. 55. I don't really have to tweak it here. I can just line it up and then do it when I actually do the orbit, which I'm probably going to do because 41K, that's close enough to tweak it here. Finding the blue reticle once again, a little bit of free spinning all the way around. There we go. We have about a 6-minute wait till we can do our burn. But now we have 50x time acceleration, so it'll go quite a bit faster. Make sure you don't overshoot here. There we go. Do our burn. Gonna empty these tanks in just a moment here. There you go. Ditch those guys. You can see we're moving quite a bit faster now that we ditched those tanks because we ditched the weight. A little bit of tweaking to make sure we stay on our course. Do the last bit of this burn kind of slow. Now what I'm going to do at this point, I'm not going to follow the burns. In fact, just to show you that I'm not using that burn anymore, I'm actually going to cancel that burn. I'm going to mouse over my periapse here, and I'm going to burn until that is roughly 35K. It's kind of a crapshoot. I'm a little bit overboard. There's a reason I am setting this up, which I'll show in a minute. Last time I did it, 33K was too low, so we're going to try 35 here, and I'm going to time warp until I transition from the moon's gravity well to the planet's gravity well. Again, try not to time warp through these transitions at an insane velocity. And we're getting our weird glitchiness again. Oh well, it will... There we go. So what I'm going to do right now is... Oh, that's almost perfect. I don't even... What I was going to do is adjust so I come in level. Though I'm nailing that so perfectly already, I really don't need to do hardly anything. Again, it's about a 1 meter second adjustment. That'll do her. What's our Kerbal periapse? 36K. I really think 36 is too high. I might prove myself wrong, in which case we won't get as cool of a landing as I was hoping for. But nevertheless, it will not affect the mission's success in any way. It's just a cool factor. Alright, 35K. Now, we're going to play the game of how good did I guess on this. Again, we're going to time warp until we get closer to the planet. And we're on the dark side, which is awesome because we don't get to see the fun. What I'm doing is I am aerobraking on the planet's atmosphere. The reason I was guessing on the 35K is because if you aerobrake it right, you will bring this all the way down to here. If you do it too high, this will be way out here still. If you do it too low, you'll land. Ideally, I want to put it in an orbit. Yeah, whoa, KSC is actually right here. Oh, my goal, I want to land right at KSC. Now, I would have liked to do it in the daytime, but once again, we're not going to be cooperative. I might, depending on how this looks like it's going to end up, just try and put her down right now. We'll see how our orbit looks. I really don't want to sit and circle this damn thing for 30 minutes to try and get a daytime landing, even though they're way cooler, especially if you're bringing it down right on top of the launch pad. You know, that's not too bad. I think I-35K is almost perfect. That's a slightly larger orbit than I need. We're at a 400K orbit, but coming in from another body and hitting that orbit is not shabby at all. So what I'm going to do, again, this is just play, and I can land this thing anytime I wanted, but I want to come in style. I really do. I'm going to raise my periapsis up to about 75 or so K there. It's just a short burn. Once we get up here, alrighty, there we go. To finish her off, we're gonna I don't think I'm gonna lower that all the way because I really don't have that much fuel left, and if I want to pull this landing off, I do need to save enough fuel to finish my orbit, otherwise it's not going to look as cool as I was hoping. So, for the moment, I'm just going to circle the planet for a couple times until the Space Center is in daylight. This is the Space Center right here, by the way. What I did is I actually put a little beacon there just so I always know where the hell it is on the planet so I can land there. Not that I normally do a good job of landing there, but you know, we can hope. Alright, so that's going to be in the day now. So on the next pass around, I'm going to set up to hit it. The reason I'm waiting one more pass is just so we can get a little more warning to set up the burn. I don't want to be rushing to set up this burn here. So now I'm going to add that maneuver. It's not really aligned perfectly. Ideally, you'd want this to be over here, so you're have to use less thrust to basically do it. But again, oh well. If I run out of thrust, I just will land wherever. Oh no, I've still got plenty of fuel there. This is not going to be a problem. The nice thing right now is this craft is so light that it doesn't take much to do it. So this is when we kind of play the guessing game just a hair. At one point I figured out exactly where to burn over here to land on the planet, but that would require not forgetting. I think we do burn roughly like that. I think that'll leave us a little bit short, but close enough that I can just use fuel to cancel the last bit of it out. It's quite squirrely because it is so light. Also, as you can see, I do almost the whole thing looking at the map screen here. Unless you're watching for staging or actually setting down on the ground, there's really not much of a point to be looking at the other screen. The majority of the game is played on the map screen. Now you'll see this line looks like it's overshooting quite a bit. However, that's not taking into account the atmosphere breaking. In fact, I might not even do that full burn because what I don't want to do is come up short. That's close enough. I actually didn't even necessarily want to do quite that much of it, but whatever. Again, I have a decent amount of fuel. We are now hitting the atmosphere. Well, that's what happens when you try and rotate the craft with physical time warp on. It flips the hell out all over the place. And I'm coming in too high. Coming in way too high. Now, the question is, did I overdo that deceleration burn? I might have. Oh yeah, I did. Now we're coming in too low. Alright, so it's not quite as cool looking as actually landing on the runway like I was hoping for. But overall, it's not too bad of a shot, I guess. I'm 5K away? 6K away? And there we go, at 5.8 KOA. Again, not ideal, but more than close enough I could send out a rover to pick him up if I really wanted. It just doesn't have quite the awesome factor of landing on the tower. But there you go. That is a trip to the moon and back. There is our little Kerbal. He can, if we really wanted to, he could actually jog all the way over there. It would just take us about 20 minutes that we don't want to watch because that's quite boring. But there you have it. That's how you get to the moon and back with a fairly basic rocket. Again, you can do a lot more fancy stuff, rovers, all that crap, but that's the basics. And yeah.